What if everything you've been told isn't the whole truth? What if the reality you're living in isn't as solid as you've been led to believe? What if what you see every day is only a fraction of the story, hidden behind layers of manipulation, power, and unseen forces? Join me as we explore the strange, the mysterious, and the unexplainable. We dive deep into the things they don't want you to know. But the question remains, is this your reality?
Police department.
Okay, stop it, Josh. How are you?
So the reason I stopped you is you are suspended with a warrant for your arrest.
I am?
So do me a favor, turn off the car, put the keys up on the dash, detain you for that warrant, and because you are suspended actively. Oh. Hey.
What?
Come here.
Hello?
The raccoon has her meth pipe.
God.
As what?
Oh my God.
Her meth pipe. He's playing with the meth pipe right now. No, don't reach for it. That's evidence now.
Oh, I don't want him to have that.
That's why I'm going to do it. Hey, buddy.
Huh?
It's okay.
Okay, you're on honest. He'll be here in 2 minutes. I'm right across from my office.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is what she's smoking meth in.
Okay.
The raccoon's playing with her meth pipe.
All right.
Oh, there's no way. He's trying to smoke it.
All right. It's nice.
There's no way. All right. Enough fun and games.
Yeah.
You?
Huh?
Oh.
Yeah, he's on his way here.
Keep an eye. She was trying to take the meth pipe out of the car. Just keep an eye on her real quick.
Every single dinosaur skeleton you see in a museum is fake. What they show you are casts and models, not real bones, the original bones, the remains of a certain flying beast that's been documented all throughout history, mentioned by every single ancient culture. Yeah, nigga, dragons. The bones from previous resets and catastrophes and whatever other fucking genetic monstrosities the civilization before us created in their eugenics labs are locked away, unavailable for independent research. Shocking, I know.
Is so shocking. And it basically applies to everyone, because if you've drank tap water, you got birth control. If you've taken birth control, of course, you're birth controlled. If you've been with a woman who's been on birth control, trace amounts affect you. This is shocking. Wait until you hear this.
Did you know that birth control is mind control? Let me explain. BC changes a woman's estrogen levels, which alters the testosterone levels a woman searches for in a man. What you can learn from this is that estrogen, essentially the spirit of the feminine, loves testosterone, essentially the spirit of masculinity. Women, when living in a healthy state of mind, love real men. Since the birth control pills make levels of estrogen low, women on the pill have been hormonally conditioned to choose men with low testosterone. Research has even shown that women on BC prefer men with less masculine faces. So please allow me to understand this. You're telling me a pill can alter a woman's biochemistry so severely that it will change her discernment, intuition, and attraction to men, essentially changing her entire family line, her entire DNA that she passes down to her children will be altered by this. And I say, that sounds like mind control. And I'm the crazy one.
Now, there's a part of this agenda that is so shocking I cannot even share it in this video. As you know, this is a multi-billion-dollar-a-year industry. But if you comment info below, I'll send you a link and we can discuss further other angles of this agenda and also ways to mitigate the effects and boost yourself. Comment info below and I'll send you a...
When you read the story of Pinocchio, Pinocchio has two words, pine, P-I-N, pineal gland, and occhio is ocular. Occhio in Italian is eye. That's why you go to an oculist. So Pinocchio means the pineal gland. Pinocchio is a puppet. It is not a real person. In order to become a real person, to ascend, you have to activate your pineal gland. You have to stop telling lies. You have to stop being deceived by your friends. You have to stop going to the circuses and the shows, as all the philosophers have ever said, getting drunk, intoxicated with drugs, and to be sober. So the pineal gland is the third eye, and it's our highest consciousness. But if you want to be real, just read the story of Pinocchio, and activate your Pinocchio. Pineal gland is the third eye.
This is the same McDonald's in 2009. Talk about attention to detail. This looks like a safari outside of that building. Check out this McDonald's in 2025. Now look at the exact same McDonald's in 2009. Not as detailed as the safari, but look at what's going on here. Once again, attention to detail. Look at how these logos look in 2025. Look at how they used to look like in the 2000s. They're really taking the color away from life. They're taking the enthusiasm away from life, the flavor, the spark. Now, all of these establishments down to the logo be looking like a gray factory. And the thing about it is it's all by design. It's all by design. It would be one thing if the aesthetics was taken away from the overhead that you would make as a profit every month. But that's not the case because McDonald's, Wendy's, etc., they're making money and a lot of money every year. So why take away the personality, the flavor of the building itself? Why take away all those colors and all of that? Because I'm assuming that the agenda is to make everything monotone. Everything with no spark, with less flavor. Like the creativity level in this era right now is at an all-time low. I've never seen nothing like this before. All the way down to the logos. Like everything is just depressing with it. We need a renaissance and we need it fast.
This guy here is Semon Toko from Africa. And I'm going to play you a little clip, and hopefully you'll be able to hear this about what he's all about.
So the story goes that in the 1960s, there was a black man in Africa who came in with abilities complementary to those of Jesus. And he was performing miracles. He was starting to get people to listen to what he had to say. And the cabal tried to kill him. And, they could shoot him in the head and his skull would just regenerate. The flesh would grow back and he was fine. And, so the crazy story that I heard, and remember, I was told at the time that if I disclosed this, that I would be killed. And I ended up putting it in the book anyway.
This is David Wilcox.
The story was that this guy, they finally said, okay, we're going to bring you to the United Nations and share your message with the world. Let's get you on this flight. They bring him on this flight, and instead of bringing him to the United Nations, they shot him repeatedly, and then actually had some kind of meat grinder device, and basically like a bandsaw, I guess, and sawed up his body into a whole bunch of pieces, put him in these very like radioactive shielded containers, and then had all these fighter jets dock with the plane and fly his body parts to all corners of the world, where then these containers turned them into ash. And they thought that maybe this would defeat him, like that his body somehow, the tissue was necessary. So if they destroyed all the tissue in all these places across the world, maybe they could defeat him. Well, he then regenerated in their offices and was fully fine, fully intact. But the sad part is that he said, you guys so badly do not want me to be here that I am not going to be able to do any more. You're going to get what you want, but bear in mind that in the future, many others like me will be coming, and when they do, you will not be able to stop them.
Wow. Wow. Many others like me will come. Many others. The Jesus-like figure. That's what we're talking about. That's what's coming. Another confirmation of what's coming. 5D. Looking forward to it.
Works. So this is below, and there's buildings and houses. Then there's a bridge. And on this bridge, there's buildings and houses on top. So are the buildings built on the bridge?
The mud flood, many say, was a deliberate attempt to wipe out Tartaria from history, hiding their advanced technology and knowledge. During the early 19th century, strange events were reported worldwide. Cities were being dug out from layers of mud and debris. Buildings were being revealed that were covered to their rooftops in mud. A global cataclysmic event buried entire civilizations, erasing them from history. But here is where it gets rather unsettling. The Tartarian Empire, an empire often depicted in old maps, was an advanced civilization that existed across Europe and Asia. They built architectural marvels, had access to advanced technology, and were able to harness energy from the atmos.
Who were the Tartarians? The official history is hiding a major world power which existed as late as the 19th century. Tartary was a country with its own flag, its own government, and its own place on the map. Its territory covered most of the modern world we know today, yet somehow it was ever so quietly incorporated into Russia and some other countries.
2025. In fact, it could be 1727. Sounds insane. Stay with me as this will blow your mind. In 1991, German historian Hermann Illig proposed something that shakes the very foundation of time itself, the phantom time hypothesis. His claim, the years 614 to 911 AD, never actually happened. They were completely fabricated, inserted into history, a false timeline that we've been living in ever since. But if this is true, who did it, and why Illig believed that three powerful figures were behind this massive historical lie? Holy Roman Emperor Otto III Pope, Sylvester II, Byzantine Emperor, Constantine VII. Their motive to rewrite history for power and prestige. Otto III wanted to rule in the year 1000 AD, a symbolic prophetic year that carried power, legitimacy, and divine importance. But instead of waiting, they simply fast-forwarded history itself. Think about it. If 297 years really happened, we should have undeniable evidence. Artifacts, architecture, written records. But here's the problem they're missing. Historians struggle to explain why this period produced so little physical proof, why there are so few major advancements, buildings or documents. And if this sounds impossible, just remember, entire civilizations have been erased from history. What year is it really? How much of our history is a lie?
I'm going to be showing you what happens when you bring a superconductor next to ferrofluid. I have a magnet under my white plate here. Let's put some ferrofluid on the plate. Ferrofluid is made of nanoparticles of iron, and when you apply a magnetic field to them, they follow the magnetic field lines in this spiky pattern here. The stronger the magnetic field is, the closer together the spikes form. So first, let me show you what happens when I move a regular magnet near the ferrofluid. You can see it just sucks it up to the magnet. Okay, now let's bring the superconductor up to it. Okay, watch it push the spikes out of the way as I bring it close. That's because it's opposing the magnetic field at first. Now, if I were able to get it closer, then it would lock in place and it wouldn't push the spikes out of the way. But if I push it any closer, it's going to go into the ferrofluid. Another cool thing I observed is that when you bring it near the ferrofluid, the spikes actually start to flow towards it. Now, this seemed odd to me because there wasn't a reason magnetically why it should do that. So I tested it with just plastic that was cold, not a superconductor, and it did the same thing. So that means it's completely due to the coldness of the superconductor and not the properties of the superconductor itself. That could be because the denser fluid sinks down and the hotter fluid rises up. So first, let me lock the magnets in place on the superconductor by pressing it through the magnetic field. And once it's locked there, it will just stay there. So it can spin in one axis, but it's locked in the other axis. Now let's pour some ferrofluid on it. Well, that is amazing. Okay, that was pretty amazing, but now let's see what happens when I pour a liter of ferrofluid on my giant monster neodymium magnet. So I got my monster magnet right here. I'm going to put this plexiglass over the top of it. Now let's pour on the ferrofluid. Whoa. This magnet has 1,000-pound pull force. It's extremely strong. Whoa, this is weird. The fluid spikes up before it even pours out. So this is a liquid that's not viscous at all. It's almost like water. Whoa. When it gets around the magnet, it's like the density increases past the density of mercury. It makes my hand just float in it. In fact, I have to push as hard as I can to get my hand to even go inside of it. This is so weird. Okay, this is so weird. It feels like this is solid, like I have to put pressure on it, but it's a liquid. This is the weirdest thing I've ever felt. Okay, it's completely sideways now. Look at this. And it's hanging on there still. Let me show you how this coin normally sinks to the bottom. Now, if I pick it up out of here, here's the coin.
Never, ever have I seen the phasing of the moon go down and up. Usually the phasing of the moon goes left to right. So does this mean the sun is going north to south now? Also, if you look more closely, the phasing of the moon is being caused by some other disk being blocked right in front. If you can see right here in the moon's a perfect circle, but then you can see a different shade of gray that's protruding out from where the upper edge of the moon would be. There's another circular disk covering the moon. But since when does the phasing of the moon go down and up and down? Usually it's left and right. No way.
About President Obama. She and her grandfather say that President Obama is related to all but one U.S. president. We get more tonight from Action News and Felix Cortez. It's live in our Salinas newsroom. Well, Dan, the youngster spent the summer, really all summer, tracing the family tree of our presidents. Her conclusion that all the presidents, with the exception of one, share the same grandfather.
Well, first we start off with George Washington at the top, and then it goes to John Adams, Thomas Jefferson.
11-year-old Bridget Dovigneau says she's made a first-of-its-kind discovery that President Obama and all the presidents before him, with the exception of one, are related and descendants of a former king of England.
No, they're all cousins,
Oh, I
and they're grandsons of John Locke.
Dovigneau says she spent countless hours on the internet over the summer researching
the United States and the Soviet Union. It was created by those at the top to fund the New World Order and the New World Order's police force. At the highest levels of all countries, they all belong to the same club. And we, the people, sit back and we watch this grand drama, which is being played out for our benefit, not theirs. If it wasn't for us, they wouldn't even have to do any of this. But you see, they just can't come out and destroy all of us because they need slaves. They need people to make their shoes and make their cars and mine the ore. They need worker bees, and that's what we are. In the New World Order, we will be the worker bees, the slaves. Most people are no better than animals who do not have intelligence because they don't use their intelligence. And to these men who control things behind the scenes, you are stakes on the table by choice and consent, and will always be ruled and manipulated and enslaved by people who do use their brains.
Is actually just a projection of our mind. This sounds like the script from the movie Matrix, but I'm going to explain how science looks at it. In the analytic idealism theory, former CERN scientist Bernardo Kastrup says that all matter is what the mind looks like from the outside. That matter does not create consciousness, it's consciousness that creates matter. He says that our physical reality is the outward appearance of our thoughts and our emotions. Just as a smile doesn't cause happiness, the brain doesn't cause consciousness. It's just a symptom of it. And Kastrup proposes that there's only one universal consciousness called the mind at large. Just like how the ocean creates infinite waves, each individual wave is our human experience. When the wave is above the water, it is temporarily disconnected from the body of ocean, creating our unique individual perspective on life. And this is where it gets interesting. He says that death is an illusion. When the physical body dies, your consciousness becomes reintegrated back to that one universal consciousness. Just like how a wave, when it crashes back into the ocean, becomes the ocean again. So in a world where conventional science says that we're just these biological machines that happen to have consciousness, Kastrup says that you are actually part of the creator and you are the universe waking up to itself.
Astronaut? Well, that's great. You can be an astronaut. All you have to do is study flying or science, and maybe someday you could be the first astronaut to walk on the moon.
No! There already was an astronaut who first walked on the moon.
Well, no, not really. That wasn't real. See, there was this thing called the Cold War, and in order to beat the Russians, we kind of faked that. That never happened. See how there's no windows on the side? And see underneath where there's like a pod thing? What's that, right? Take a look at this wreckage. See how there's no plane parts on the ground there? What does that look like?
A missile.
You see, President Bush was in a secret society at Yale called the Skull and Bones. His dad was too, and they all worship Satan.
President Bush worshipped Satan?
In my personal opinion, absolutely.
It is the second most prevalent liquid on Earth. Putting a price on oil is like putting a price on a pail of water. You know, there's no initial cost. It's in the ground. And in those days, they were, some of it almost what you'd call surface mining the oil. They didn't go down deep. So in order to get the price up, they hit on the idea that they would have to make it appear to be scarce. That after we take the next few barrels out, we're probably going to have to close as well. You know, that kind of thing. For a very fortuitous event. In 1892, there was a convention in Geneva of scientists to determine what organic substances are. At this Geneva convention, Rockefeller took advantage of sending some scientists over. They defined oil as a residue from formerly living matter. Well, that makes it a fossil fuel. I don't know why they decided to use the word fossil, but it says formerly living matter is fossil. And another thing we should know is that there has never been a fossil, a real fossil, found below 16,000 feet. We mine oil, or we drill for oil at 30,000, 33,000, 28,000 every day of the week. So right there, we rule it out that it isn't fossil fuel. It's called fossil fuel for the minds of the public to feel that it is an asset that is running out, being depleted. We talk about depletion allowance, which is a lot of, and actually, if you know the world's oil supply, you know that it is not going to run out for an awfully long time. What bothers me is that in geology books, it's in there. The geologists say it's a fossil fuel. They've been bought to create a world price for oil. In other words, not 30 cents a gallon here and 90 cents a gallon there, but let's get a world price. That's their goal.
No. Let's get deep into it. Here we go. The United States of America was incorporated in London in 1783. The United States of America is a territory of Great Britain. The colonists did not win the Revolutionary War. The British troops did not leave until 1796. Wasn't too long ago. 2. King George III of England financed both sides of the Revolutionary War. 3. The IRS is not a U.S. government agency. It is a debt collection agency of the International Monetary Fund, which is also known as IMF. The IMF is an agency of the United States, which is the UN. The U.S. has not had a U.S. Treasury since 1921. I wonder why. 6. New York City is defined in the Code of Federal Regulations, also known as CFR, as the United Nations. Okay, let's go to 7. No judicial courts nor judges have existed in America since 1789. Executive administrators, not judges, executive administrators, not judges, enforce statutes and codes. 8. You cannot use the U.S. Constitution to defend yourself because you are not a party to it. Use instead the Bill of Rights. You own no property. Slaves cannot own property. Read the deed to the property that you think you own. You are listed as a tenant. We are slaves and own nothing, not even who we think are our children. That's deep. 11. Great Britain is owned by the Vatican. 12. The Pope can abolish any law in the United States. Make sure y'all take notes. 13. We are human capital. 14. We are enemies of the state. Let's see what else they got, y'all. Trying to get through this as quick as possible. 15. Your name, when spelled in all caps, is a corporation. 16. The people do not include you and me since our name are all capital letter fictional legal names. 17. A 1040 form is a tribute paid to Great Britain. Here's the rest
of South America as 1, Africa as 2, and Australia as 3. Notice how there is no cables from here to here or here to here. You might ask, why is that important? Here's why. The reason you will never see these cables connected is because look how far the distance is from 1 to 2 and 2 to 3, and the vast distance from 1 to 3. But Ryan, what about these cables here? Oh yeah, you mean the short distance right here? But you might ask yourself, Ryan, why is that important? Over 99% of the world's internet traffic, including international phone calls and data transfers, rely on cables. Not satellites, cables. Y'all, pull up any map of sea cables and you will see that none of these touch. Because we live on a flat, geocentric plane, just like the Word of God says. In Revelations 29, and they, talking about the angels, went up on the breadth of the earth. What is that? That is Strong's G4114. Breadth meaning plateaus, has a root word, breadth, suggesting great extent. Let's look up this root word plateaus. G4116.
State of the ground. If this were true, we would all be cemented to the surface of the earth. Birds would not be able to fly. Balloons would not be able to float. We would not even be able to lift a finger. The reason things drop to the ground is due to density, not gravity. Objects continue to fall until they come in contact with something denser than itself. You may be wondering, then what does cause the tides? The answer is magnetism. One of the characteristics of water is that it is diamagnetic. You may be wondering, what does diamagnetic mean? The word diamagnetic means that it is something that repels a magnetic field. Here's a brief video showing water being repelled by a magnet.
Is water, A, attracted by a magnet, B, repelled by a magnet, or C, completely non-magnetic? Most of you will answer C, and you wouldn't be wrong. After all, in everyday life, you'd notice nothing unusual about water and magnetism. Interestingly enough, the correct answer is B. Water is actually slightly repelled by a magnet. This anti-magnetic property is called diamagnetism. However, the effect is extremely weak. That's why most people don't know it's there. To see it, we need to build an extremely sensitive detector. Luckily, this is brutally simple. Just get a basin of water and put into it a styrofoam block. It's going to move around a lot, but this is actually a good thing. The styrofoam floats, and because it's so light, even the smallest force will push it around. So try and build this away from drafts and moving air, and be careful that your own breathing doesn't disrupt it. The water helps to dampen any stray motion. Now get a test tube and fill it with water and push it into the center of the styrofoam. This is the water we're actually going to measure, not the water in the basin. Now steady it, and when it's still, get a strong neodymium magnet and hold it as close as possible to the tube without touching it. Whoops, I hit it there. Let me steady it. Okay, let me try again. Slowly but surely, it's moving away from the magnet. It's an extremely weak effect, but it's happening.
So how does the diamagnetic property of water come into play with the tides? The sun and moon act as a battery in the sky, the sun having a positive charge, and the moon having a negative charge. The sun's positive charge repels the water at low tide, and the moon's negative charge attracts the water at high tide. This is why there's a constant rate of waves being thrown up on the seashore. The opposing forces of the sun and moon cause the ocean to be in a constant state of tumult.
power outages in Europe. Yes, the power outages in Europe are orchestrated by the electric companies. And then what they're going to do is they're going to say that it was the sun. The sun did it. And now they're talking about how they want to spray the skies to block out the sun. And so that's their solution. But the power companies just pushed a button and they turned off the power. That's how a lot of this stuff is. What they'll do is they'll say it was a cyber attack and they'll say it was this country that did it and whatever else. In reality, the electric companies just turn off the power. And this is where you get into like the whole digital thing. Everybody who wants to go into crypto and digital currency, and we'll just use everything on our devices and electronics and everything else. Because when they just push the button, all your stuff turns off, all your money turns off, everything turns off. Now you could imagine when you have electric vehicles on top of that, how that system is going to work. And this is why when people, consent to this digital prison system, is what I call it, then you are now consenting towards that. And when these power outages happen, because they've switched to sustainable energy, which results in power outages because you have too much dirty electricity, so you overpower the grid, and then the grid goes down. When that happens, then people are completely out of power, and then they're kind of SO.
It compresses, it mirages, it obscures, and it stretches. It's unpredictable and obvious. This is what refraction looks like. As I have personally experienced many times, refraction is the enemy of long-distance viewing as it obscures your line of sight. This is an example of the typical refraction you'll see if you take a telescope to a lake. Because of refraction, the kayakers begin to appear as though they're floating and will eventually disappear into the mirage. See this white spot here? No, that's not a ghost. That's a distant object obscured by an inferior mirage. Refraction is the reason why you'll see stupid claims and videos like this one saying that they filmed a ghost ship when they only filmed an inferior mirage. 3.5 million views for that stupidity. Globe propagandists have hijacked the term refraction and illogically converted it to a ridiculous Earth bulge removing device. Instead of obstructing vision, like so many examples, for the globe propagandists, refraction now magically causes giant Earth curvature bulges to disappear without a trace. They want you to believe that the giant Earth bulge that should have been blocking these distant boats just disappeared. Only the Earth bulge supposedly disappeared, and nothing else. And that brings me to the Canigou proof of the flat Earth. Canigou is a mountain located in France that has a top elevation of 9,134 feet. Twice a year, in February and October, many people go to Marseille, France, to film Canigou. At these two times of the year, the sun sets directly behind the distant Canigou, creating a mountain silhouette. This event has been observed since at least 1808, and here's a photo taken in 1898. It's a beautiful event, one that I hope to see myself someday, but it's also a great proof of the flat Earth. Let's look at this long-distance Canigou photo from the Beyond Range website. The distance from the photographer in Marseille to Canigou was 163 miles. The observer was 1,050 feet high. Under the globe model, 10,205 feet should have been hidden behind the giant globe curvature. Thus, the very top of the peak should have been 1,071 feet below the alleged Earth bulge. This Canigou observation proves the Earth is flat. But this observation also destroys two other key arguments of the globe propagandists. First is the propagandist argument that we should be able to see forever on a flat Earth. For example, I've heard many times that someone should be able to see the Eiffel Tower from New York if the Earth were flat. I'm surprised at how many times I continue to see this silly argument in emails and comments to me. In addition to angular size limitations, the answer to the claim can be found in the question of why isn't Canigou filmed at other times of the year besides February and October? Without the aid of the sun creating a silhouette of Canigou, it is obstructed by the opacity of the atmosphere, and so you simply can't see it. So, for all other occasions, Canigou would look like this. You can't see it, and that certainly doesn't mean there's curvature blocking it. Only when the sun sets behind Canigou does it become visible at that distance. Otherwise, Canigou blends in with the atmosphere. Without question, the opacity of the atmosphere limits our ability to see at extreme distances. The next propagandist argument is that Canigou is only visible because of refraction. But the Canigou event is visible twice a year in February and October. Does magical curvature removing refraction work on a tight schedule? As you can see in countless examples, refraction certainly does not work on a schedule. Also, according to the globe model, when you watch the sun setting behind Canigou, the sun also must be hopping over the curvature. Can you point me out the time when the sun begins hopping over the curvature? With all of this alleged curvature hopping and bulges disappearing, where is the manifest distortion? Does this event really look like a mirage to you? I cannot help the unreasonable, the hired liars, and the willfully blind, but the Canigou observation from Marseille proves the Earth.
Everything vibrates at a frequency, and if you know that frequency, you can control things. This is the model, and this is diagramming all the frequencies of the elements and what their vibrational frequencies are, and the numbers that measure those frequencies. And they're all the numbers we get from looking at these ancient traditions that recur over and over and over again.
And so through this technology, they're able to move stones or cut stones or all the above?
All the above.
We call these transducers, which is just a fancy word for speakers. These speakers, they only work at one frequency, and this frequency is 40 kilohertz, which we shouldn't be able to hear. Only bats, dogs, and other animals should be able to hear 40 kilohertz. But because the ultrasound is so powerful, if we put some particles, they should be kept in midair with the power of sound. And all these things that they are just being like kept there with there, actually it's not there, it's the ultrasound pushing them from all directions.
Scientists already knew the sound. Look at these images. Can you figure out why Himalayan salt looks like flesh? I'll give you a hint. We are living on the remains of a much larger past. It's believed that giants once roamed the earth. The Book of Enoch speaks of a species called the Nephilim, giants born from the union of fallen angels and human women. These beings were enormous, powerful, and possessed knowledge far beyond human capabilities. Many structures and details today can be attributed to these giants. Think about the massive doorways, stumps from enormous trees, and giant skeletons that have been found. But it gets even deeper. Tartaria was known for its monumental architecture and technological prowess. Could the Nephilim have been a part of this empire? Their immense strength and knowledge could explain how such grand structures were built. But there's even more. The Bible mentions that God was furious at the chaos the Nephilim had caused, and he sent a great flood to cleanse the earth. This cataclysmic event buried these giants, and all we are left with today are their petrified remains. This brings us to another question. Could geology just be hardened biology? Over millennia, their bodies have fossilized into the pink salt we know today. It's no wonder this salt is known for its mystical and healing properties. What if it holds the essence of these powerful beings?
got your ass now. Now this is what it looked like after the last reset. So after the fall of the Tartarian Empire, there was a lot of Tartarian tech just lying about, and the settlers, which you know as the founders, moved in and salvaged what they could. I mean, how many times have I told you? These men with the horse and wagon did not build these structures, and this is not their technology. Are you trying to tell me that they would build train tracks, tram lines, and carts? They didn't know how to build an engine. Come on, brother. This is what it would look like in today's day and age. It's like somebody riding up on a horse, finding a jeep, but didn't have a key, and decided to use horse power. And this is why they used to say, what in tarnations is going on? Because when it came to Tartaria, they didn't have a clue.
These products contain nanoparticles, but the Coca-Cola discovery of nanoparticles, these were fluorescent nanoparticles in Coca-Cola. Now, let's step back for a second. We've seen Bill Gates at the forefront of so many things regarding health. In 2020, he and his then wife owned more than 250,000 acres of farmland, and they were buying it up quite rapidly. Some suspect that it is because he wants to have his finger right on the pulse of food production in America and how that will affect the eating habits of everyday Americans. Now, if we then take a look at the fact that nanoparticles are in food items for a particular purpose, and the fact that nanoparticles cross the blood-brain barrier, then what are we doing with nanoparticles in our foods? Well, let's go back to the deal, the $1.1 billion deal that was signed between Microsoft and Coca-Cola. Particles are a part of our everyday consumer items.
I bet you didn't know your favorite soda contains more than just sugar and fizz. Let's dive into this shocking discovery. Researchers have uncovered tiny fluorescent nanoparticles, just 5 nanometers in size, lurking in Coca-Cola and Pepsi. These particles are so small they can sneak into our cells and even make their way to our brains. But wait, there's more. Tests on mice showed no immediate harm, but some changes in body chemistry did occur. This raises big questions about what's happening inside our bodies when we drink these popular sodas. Why does this matter? These particles might be messing with our gut bacteria and brain function. With millions of people guzzling these drinks every day, understanding the long-term effects is crucial for our health. So next time you reach for that fizzy refreshment, remember, there might be more than just bubbles and caffeine in that can. Stay curious, stay informed, and keep questioning what's in your food and drinks.
One of those things that circulates on the internet, and every time I see it, I'm even more confused. I did a video on this years ago. This is a cashew apple, okay? A cashew apple, cashew like the nut. And this is what it looks like. A cashew grows out the anus of an apple. And then when it's ripe, the whole thing falls. It's just a 2-for-1. They grow in tropical forests. You just take the nut out the booty hole, and there you go. You can sell the fruit. You can eat the fruit. We typically don't see it in the States because it's hard to transport. It spoils really easily. But it looks like a magical thing that's growing. You know, like when you see those sci-fi movies and there's like the glowing mushrooms or the plants that have faces. It looks like something in an enchanted forest, and it's just cashews. Like, I don't know anything, and I knew this. I don't even know the things I knew. That's how mind-blowing it is. I already researched this, and it blows my mind. Not to mention that the cashew, when it's grown, it has like a poisonous acid in it. And so when it's picked, it has to be like dried out, it has to be roasted. They have to do all these processes to take the toxins out. And then by the time it gets to us, it's just trail mix or some, Like we have no idea. People in other countries are eating cashew apples. What even is that? A cashew apple that pooped out like a cashew hemorrhoid that just hangs on, and then you have to take the poison out of it, and then yay, trail mix. That's big trippy. Big trippy. Next, you're gonna tell me that almonds come out the armpit of a banana or something. You know, peanuts are literally come from elephant testicles. I don't know, but this is crazy.